Listen closely, because this is not random. This is not just another moment scrolling by. This right here is a pause that was placed in your path on purpose. Right before you make that decision, the one that's been sitting heavy on your chest, the one you've been going back and forth on, the one that keeps replaying in your mind when everything gets quiet. Something stopped you. Something slowed you down. Something pulled your attention here. And now you're wondering why now. Because deep down you already feel it, don't you? There's a tension inside you. A quiet pressure. Like something isn't fully right, but you can't quite explain it. You've tried to logic your way through it. You've tried to convince yourself that it makes sense. That it's the right move. That everything will be fine. But still there's that subtle hesitation. That whisper you can't silence. That feeling that something bigger is at play. That's not anxiety. That's awareness. And Archangel Michael is stepping in before you take another step forward. You weren't meant to rush this decision. You weren't meant to act out of pressure, emotion, or exhaustion. Yet somehow, everything around you has been pushing you to move quickly. To decide fast. To just go with it and stop overthinking. But what if this isn't overthinking? What if this is divine interruption? Think about it. How many times have you made a decision too quickly only to look back later and realize you ignored the signs? The small nudges. The quiet warnings. The moments where something felt off, but you brushed it aside because it was inconvenient to stop and reevaluate. And now here you are again standing at another crossroads. But this time, something is different. This time, heaven is not staying silent. Archangel Michael does not step in casually. His presence is not random, and his timing is never late. When he appears, it means something is about to shift. It means something unseen is influencing what you're about to do. And it means you are being given a chance, a rare, powerful chance, to pause before stepping into something you may not fully understand yet. You feel it, don't you? That pull in your spirit telling you to slow down. That inner voice asking you to look again. That strange feeling like you're being watched over, guided, even protected from something you can't yet see clearly. Because you are. And here's what you need to understand right now. Not every opportunity is alignment. Not every door that opens is meant for you. Not every choice that feels urgent is actually important. Some choices are tests. Tests of your discernment. Tests of your patience. Tests of whether you will move with pressure or with purpose. Right now, you are in one of those tests. And the decision in front of you. It's not as simple as it looks. There are layers to it. Consequences that haven't revealed themselves yet. Paths that split far beyond what your eyes can currently see. What feels like a single choice is actually a turning point. That's why this moment feels so intense. That's why your spirit won't let it go. That's why you couldn't just move on without seeing this message. Because Archangel Michael is not just warning you, he's protecting your future. He's standing at the edge of your next step, holding back something you're not meant to walk into blindly. He's cutting through confusion, trying to give you clarity before you act. But you must meet him halfway. You must be willing to pause, to listen, to question what you thought was already decided. Because once you move, you can't unmove. As you can't unuse. And some paths once taken change everything. So breathe for a moment. Step back from the noise. Step back from the urgency. Step back from the pressure that's been trying to rush you into this. Because this is your moment to see clearly. This is your moment to hear what was almost missed. This is your moment to choose. Not from fear, not from emotion, not from habit, but from truth. Archangel Michael is here not to control your decision, but to make sure you truly understand it. And what he's about to reveal next may completely change the way you see everything. Type "I am aware" in the comments if you feel this message. Blessing code 1717 is now surrounding you. There is something you need to understand right now, before you go any further, before you let your emotions finalize what your spirit is still questioning. The decision in front of you is not light. It is not casual. It is not just another everyday choice that will fade into the background of your life. No, this one carries weight. Real weight. The kind of weight you don't fully feel until after it has already shaped your path. You've been trying to simplify it, haven't you? You've been telling yourself, it's not that deep, or I'll just deal with whatever happens. But deep inside, you know that's not true. There's a reason this choice keeps coming back to you. There's a reason it feels heavier than it should. There's a reason you can't just make it and move on like everything else. Because this choice is not just about what happens next. It's about what unfolds after that and after that and after that. Every decision creates a direction, and every direction leads to a destination. Right now, you are standing at a point where one decision could shift your timeline in a way you cannot immediately reverse. And that's what Archangel Michael needs you to see. Not just the surface outcome, but the chain reaction behind it. You're looking at what feels urgent, what feels necessary, what feels like it needs to be done now. But urgency can be deceptive. Pressure can be misleading. And sometimes, the things that feel like they must happen immediately are actually the things that require the most patience. Think about the pressure surrounding this decision. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from peace or from anxiety? Is it coming from clarity or from confusion? Is it coming from alignment or from fear of missing out, fear of losing something, fear of disappointing someone? Because fear has a way of dressing itself up as logic, and that's where many people make their biggest mistakes. They move too quickly, thinking they are being decisive, when in reality, they are reacting. Reacting to discomfort. Reacting to external expectations. Reacting to a moment that feels intense but is not necessarily important in the long run. But you were not meant to react. You were meant to discern. And discernment requires stillness. It requires you to look beyond what is obvious and ask deeper questions. What is this choice really connected to? Who benefits from this decision? What part of you is being activated right now? Is it your higher awareness or your emotional triggers? Because the truth is, not every choice is just about you. Some decisions connect you to people, environments, and outcomes that carry their own energy, your own consequences, their own long-term effects. And once you step into that connection, you take on everything that comes with it. That's why this matters. That's why this moment is being slowed down. Because once you say yes, you are not just saying yes to the visible outcome. You are saying yes to everything attached to it. And once you say no, you are not just closing a door. You are redirecting your path entirely. You may not see the full picture yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. There are outcomes hidden from your current perspective. There are consequences that haven't revealed themselves. There are details you haven't been shown yet. And that's exactly why Archangel Michael is stepping in now. Not to scare you, not to control you, but to make you aware that this decision carries more weight than you've been allowing yourself to acknowledge. You feel it in your body, don't you? That slight heaviness when you think about choosing one direction. That hesitation that shows up even when everything looks right. That inner pause that refuses to disappear no matter how much you try to push forward. That is not weakness. That is warning. You are being asked to slow down because there is something deeper you need to recognize before you move. Something that cannot be seen if you rush. Something that will only become clear if you give yourself the space to truly evaluate what is happening beneath the surface. Because once this choice is made, it will begin to shape your reality. It will influence your environment. It will affect your peace. It will either align you or slowly pull you away from what is meant for you. And the most dangerous part is this: some choices don't feel wrong at the beginning. They feel right. They feel exciting. They feel justified. But over time, they reveal consequences that could have been avoided if only there had been a pause. This is that pause. This is your moment to look again. Not with your eyes, but with your awareness. Not with urgency, but with clarity. Because the weight of this decision is real. And what you choose next will echo longer than you think. Type "I choose" with clarity in the comments if you received this message. Blessing code 2222 is now activated around your path. At first, it did feel like a warning. That's what makes this moment so important to understand. It didn't come to you loudly. It didn't arrive with fear or panic. It didn't shake you or force you to stop. No, it came quietly. So quietly that you almost ignored it. It started as a whisper. A subtle thought that didn't match the direction you were about to take. A small hesitation that interrupted your certainty. A feeling that something wasn't fully aligned, even though everything around you seemed to be pointing forward. You brushed it off at first. You told yourself it was nothing. You told yourself you were just overthinking again. But the whisper didn't leave, did it? It stayed. And then it came back again in a different way. Maybe through a conversation that didn't sit right with you. Maybe through a repeated sign that felt too specific to be random. Maybe through a sudden shift in your mood whenever you thought about this decision. Something kept nudging you. Something kept interrupting the flow you were trying to follow. And still you tried to move forward. Because that's what we do. We override the whisper when it doesn't match what we want. We silence the inner voice when it complicates our plans. We push past the discomfort because stopping feels inconvenient. But here's what you need to see right now. The whisper was never meant to stay a whisper. It was meant to get your attention. And when it didn't, it became something stronger. It became a warning. You may not have noticed the exact moment it shifted, but you felt it. That quiet hesitation started turning into a heavier feeling. That small doubt started becoming harder to ignore. That inner voice that once whispered gently began to repeat itself more clearly, more firmly, more persistently. That is not coincidence. That is escalation. When guidance is ignored, it doesn't disappear. It intensifies. And that's exactly what has been happening to you. Think about how many times this has come back into your awareness. How many times you tried to move past it, only for something to pull you back into questioning again. How many times you told yourself, "I'll just decide and move on," but something inside you refused to let you settle. That is not confusion. That is clarity trying to break through. But clarity does not always feel comfortable. In fact, most of the time, it disrupts what you thought was certain. It challenges what you already decided. It forces you to reconsider things you didn't want to revisit. And that's why so many people ignore it. Because listening to it requires change. Listening to it requires you to admit that something may not be as right as you wanted it to be. Listening to it may even require you to walk away from something you already invested your energy into. And that is not easy. But here's the truth you cannot ignore any longer. The whisper you heard was not random, and the warning you feel now is not optional. Archangel Michael does not send repeated signals without reason. He does not interrupt your path without purpose. And he certainly does not escalate a message unless it is necessary for your protection. Right now, you are not being left to figure this out on your own. You are being guided. But guidance only works when it is received. And receiving it means you have to stop minimizing what you feel. You have to stop dismissing what keeps returning. You have to stop convincing yourself that everything is fine when your spirit is clearly unsettled. Because the longer you ignore a warning, the louder it becomes. And eventually it reaches a point where it cannot be ignored at all. That is where you are now. This is no longer just a subtle feeling you can push aside. This is a clear signal that something requires your attention before you move forward. And the question you need to ask yourself is not, why is this happening? The real question is, what am I being shown that I haven't fully accepted yet? Because the answer is already within you. You sensed it. You felt it. You've been shown pieces of it. But you've been hesitating to fully acknowledge it. And that hesitation is exactly why this message has reached you again, but stronger this time. Because you are not meant to miss this. You are not meant to walk into something blindly. You are not meant to silence your awareness just to maintain momentum. You are meant to see clearly before you choose. And this warning is your clarity. What you do with it now determines everything that follows. Type "I listen" to the warning in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 3333 is now activated around your awareness. As this warning settles into your spirit, understand this. Every message like this is a seed of light sent into someone's darkness. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or PayPal, you are not giving to a platform. You are sowing into souls that are on the edge of awakening. The word says, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy," and right now, your giving becomes a river that carries truth to someone who is about to make the wrong choice. I feel led to tell you this directly. Your obedience in this moment can become someone else's breakthrough tomorrow. The link is in the description, and the QR code is placed where your eyes can see it for a reason. This is your moment to act. Not later, not someday, but now. As you release your seed, heaven marks your name for increase, for protection, and for divine alignment. Do not delay what God is prompting in your spirit. Step into it. You need to pause here because what you're experiencing right now is deeper than you think. This is not just about a decision. This is not just about weighing pros and cons, or choosing between what feels right and what feels wrong. There are forces at play beneath the surface, subtle, quiet, and often invisible, that are influencing the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you are being pulled toward this choice. And if you don't become aware of them, you may mistake their influence for your own voice. That's how it works. The most powerful influences are not loud. They don't announce themselves. They don't show up clearly labeled. Instead, they blend into your thoughts. They disguise themselves as logic. They present themselves as urgency, as reasoning, and this just makes sense. And before you realize it, you're not just considering a decision, you're being guided toward it without even questioning why. Think about the thoughts you've been having lately, the way they've been repeating, the way certain ideas seem to loop in your mind, pushing you toward a specific direction. Have you noticed how persistent they've become? How they show up even when you try to focus on something else? How they subtly convince you that this is the only way forward? That's not random. And it's not always coming from a place of clarity. Sometimes, what feels like clarity is actually pressure wearing a disguise. Because pressure doesn't always feel heavy. Sometimes it feels convincing. Sometimes it feels like a strong argument. Sometimes it feels like you figured it out. But when you slow down and truly observe it, you begin to notice something else beneath it, a lack of peace. That's the key. Peace is quiet, but it is steady. It does not rush you. It does not force you. It does not push you into immediate action. It allows space. It allows clarity to unfold naturally. It allows you to breathe. But what you've been feeling hasn't been that. It's been something else. A subtle tension. A sense that you need to decide quickly. A feeling that if you don't act now, you might lose something important. A pressure to finalize something that your spirit hasn't fully settled into yet. That is not peace. That is influence. And this is where you must become aware, because not every thought that enters your mind is aligned with your highest path. Not every feeling that arises is meant to guide you forward. Some of them are reactions. Some of them are echoes of past experiences. Some of them are shaped by external voices, expectations, or even environments that have left their imprint on you. And some are distractions. Distractions designed to move you off course just enough that you don't realize it until later. You felt this before, haven't you? Moments where you made a decision that seemed right at the time, but later you looked back and realized you weren't fully clear. You were influenced by something. Someone else's opinion, a temporary emotion, a fear you didn't fully recognize in the moment. And by the time you saw it clearly, the choice had already been made. That's why this moment matters so much. Because right now, you are being given the awareness you didn't have before. Archangel Michael is not stepping in to complicate your thinking. He is stepping in to clear it, to separate what is truly yours from what has been placed on you, to help you recognize which thoughts are grounded in truth and which ones are being shaped by pressure, fear, or subtle manipulation. And this requires honesty. You have to be willing to ask yourself, where is this urge coming from? Is it coming from a place of calm understanding or from a need to resolve discomfort quickly? Is it coming from your inner alignment or from something outside of you that is influencing your perception? Because the answer to that question changes everything. If you act from alignment, the path ahead may not always be easy, but it will feel right. It will feel stable. It will feel like something you can stand on without second-guessing yourself later. But if you act from influence, from pressure, from something that isn't fully clear, you may find yourself stepping into something that slowly pulls you away from where you were meant to go. And the most difficult part is this: you won't realize it immediately. That's why awareness now is so important. You are not being asked to fear this moment. You are being asked to see it, to recognize that your mind is not just processing a decision. It is being influenced in ways you must now become conscious of. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you recognize the difference between pressure and peace, you cannot confuse them again. And once you become aware of what is truly guiding you, you regain your power to choose correctly. This is what Archangel Michael is protecting. Not just your decision, but the clarity behind it. Because when your mind is clear, your path becomes clear. And right now, clarity is what will determine everything that comes next. Type I see clearly in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 4444 is now surrounding your mind with divine clarity. Now listen carefully, because this is the moment where everything shifts. Up until now, you've been sensing things. You've been feeling the hesitation, noticing the pressure, recognizing the warning that kept returning to you in different forms. But this is where it becomes undeniable. This is where the presence behind that warning reveals itself with clarity, strength, and authority. Archangel Michael is not a passive observer. He does not watch from a distance while you struggle to figure things out alone. He steps in when something matters. He steps in when a decision carries consequences you cannot yet see. And most importantly, he steps in when protection is required before a step is taken, not after. That is exactly what is happening right now. You are not being interrupted by accident. You are being intercepted with purpose. Because there is something about this moment that required intervention. Something about this decision that needed a higher level of clarity than what your current perspective could provide on its own. And instead of allowing you to move forward blindly, Archangel Michael has positioned himself at the edge of your next step. Not to block you, but to reveal what stands beyond it. You may not see him with your eyes, but you feel the shift in your spirit. You feel the weight of this moment becoming more real. You feel the seriousness of what once seemed like just another choice. That is his presence bringing awareness into your space. Because when truth enters, everything changes. Confusion begins to separate itself from clarity. Pressure begins to lose its hold. And the illusion of urgency begins to fade, revealing what is actually important. This is what authority looks like. It does not shout. It does not force. It does not overwhelm. It stands firm, steady, and undeniable, allowing you to see what was hidden beneath the surface. And right now, Archangel Michael is bringing that kind of authority into your awareness. He is cutting through everything that has been clouding your judgment. Every layer of doubt that was mixed with pressure. Every thought that was influenced by fear instead of truth. Every emotion that tried to rush you into action before you were ready. He is separating it all. Because you cannot choose correctly if everything feels blended together. You cannot move with confidence if your clarity is compromised. And you cannot step into alignment if you are being pulled in multiple directions at once. That is why this moment feels different. Because you are no longer standing in confusion alone. You are standing in awareness with guidance. And here is what you must understand about this guidance. It is not here to make the decision for you. It is here to make sure you see the decision for what it truly is. There is a difference. Many people ask for direction, but what they really want is confirmation of what they have already decided. They want reassurance, not truth. They want agreement, not clarity. But Archangel Michael does not operate that way. He does not confirm what is comfortable. He reveals what is real. And sometimes what is real requires you to stop, to reconsider, to acknowledge something you were trying to move past too quickly. That is where you are right now. You are being shown the deeper reality of what you are about to choose. Not just the outcome you expect, but the path it creates. Not just the moment you are in, but the direction it leads. And this is where his authority becomes protection. Because protection is not always about removing obstacles. Sometimes it is about revealing them before you walk into them. Sometimes it is about slowing you down before you move too fast. Sometimes it is about making you aware of what your current perspective cannot fully grasp. That is what is happening now. You are being protected through clarity. And clarity requires your attention. You cannot ignore what you are now aware of. You cannot pretend you didn't feel the shift that just took place. You cannot go back to seeing this decision the same way you did before. Because something has been revealed. And once truth is revealed, it demands a response. Not a reaction. A response. A response that comes from understanding. From awareness. From a place that is no longer clouded by urgency or pressure. This is your moment to stand still and truly see. To recognize that you are not alone in this. To understand that there is guidance present, not to control your path, but to protect it. And to realize that what you do next matters more than it did before. Because now you know more. Now you see more. Now you have been shown what was hidden. And with that awareness, your choice becomes even more powerful. So do not rush past this moment. Do not minimize what has just been revealed to you. Because this is not just guidance. This is intervention. And intervention only comes when it is truly needed. Type "I accept divine guidance" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 5555 is now activated around your decisions. There is a moment in every person's life where what feels right is not necessarily what is aligned. And this is the part that most people never stop to question. They trust the feeling. They trust the logic. They trust the timing. And because everything seems to make sense on the surface, they move forward without realizing they have just stepped into a test. That is where you are right now. Because what you are considering, what you are leaning toward, it makes sense, doesn't it? You thought it through. You justified it. You found reasons to support it. You've even started to feel more comfortable with the idea the longer you sit with it. And that comfort is exactly what makes this moment so dangerous if you are not fully aware. Not everything that feels right is meant for you. And not everything that aligns with your logic aligns with your purpose. This is something Archangel Michael needs you to see clearly before you take another step. Because the most subtle tests are not the ones that look wrong. They are the ones that look almost perfect. The ones that feel like they solve a problem. The ones that seem to bring relief. The ones that appear to offer a clear path forward when you've been feeling uncertain. But underneath that appearance there is something deeper that must be examined. Ask yourself this honestly. Does this choice bring you peace, or does it bring you relief? Because those two are not the same. Relief comes when pressure is removed. When discomfort is temporarily eased. When a decision allows you to escape a feeling you didn't want to sit with any longer. It feels good in the moment. It feels like progress. But it is often reactive. It is often driven by the need to resolve something quickly rather than understand it fully. Peace, on the other hand, is different. Peace does not rush you. Peace does not need to justify itself. Peace remains steady even when the decision is difficult. Even when it requires patience. Even when it asks you to wait instead of act. Peace is not loud, but it is certain. And right now, you must determine which one you are feeling. Because if what you are moving toward is driven by relief, then you are not choosing from clarity, you are choosing from discomfort. And that is exactly how a test works. A test does not present itself as something obvious. It does not show you clearly that it is there to challenge your awareness. It blends into your circumstances. It feels natural. It feels reasonable. It feels like something you should do. But the purpose of the test is simple: to see whether you will move based on what feels easy or what is truly aligned. And this is where many people get it wrong. They assume that alignment will always feel good immediately. They assume that the right choice will always feel easy. But sometimes, alignment requires you to pause when everything around you is telling you to go. Sometimes, it requires you to step back when everything seems to be pushing you forward. Sometimes, the right choice is the one that feels uncomfortable in the moment because it requires you to trust what you cannot fully see yet. That is the difference between reaction and discernment. Reaction moves quickly. It resolves tension. It gives you a sense of control. But it often leads you into situations that reveal their consequences later. Discernment slows down. It observes. It questions. It waits for clarity instead of forcing a conclusion. And because of that, it protects you from stepping into something prematurely. Right now, you are being asked to choose discernment. To look at this situation again, not through the lens of what seems right, but through the lens of what feels deeply, undeniably aligned. Because if there is even a small part of you that hesitates, a small part that questions, a small part that does not feel fully settled, that is not something to ignore. It is something to explore. Tests are not meant to trap you. They are meant to reveal you. They reveal how you respond under pressure. They reveal whether you trust your awareness or override it. They reveal whether you move from alignment or from urgency. And this test is revealing something important about where you are right now. You are no longer at a level where you can make unconscious decisions and expect aligned outcomes. You have grown beyond that. You have become aware enough to recognize when something needs deeper evaluation. And that awareness comes with responsibility. The responsibility to pause when needed. The responsibility to question what feels too easy. The responsibility to choose what is right, not just what feels right. Because what you do in this moment will set the tone for what comes next. And if this is a test, then your response will determine whether you move forward in alignment or repeat a pattern you were meant to break. So take your time here. Look again. Feel again. Because what seems right may not be what is meant. And what feels uncertain may actually be where your truth is waiting. Type "I choose alignment over comfort" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6666 is now activated around your path of discernment. There are moments in life that feel small while you're standing in them, but later, you look back and realize they were anything but small. They were defining. They were irreversible. They were the kind of moments that quietly redirected everything that came after. And what you are standing in right now is one of those moments. This is not just a decision. This is a doorway. And every doorway carries two realities: what it leads into and what it leaves behind. You may be focused on what you're about to gain, what this choice could bring into your life, the opportunity, the change, the shift you've been waiting for. And yes, those things may be real. But what you must also understand is that every door you walk through requires you to leave something else behind. That is the part most people don't fully consider. Because when something new presents itself, it naturally captures your attention and pulls your focus forward. It creates a sense of anticipation. But while you're looking ahead, you may not be fully aware of what is quietly closing behind you. And once it closes, it does not always reopen. This is why this moment matters so much. Because the decision you are about to make is not just opening a new path. It is closing another one. A path that may have held something meant for you. A path that may have required more patience. A path that may not have looked as appealing in the moment, but carried a different outcome entirely. And once you step away from it, that version of your future no longer exists. That is the weight of this doorway. You are not just choosing what comes next. You are choosing what will no longer be available to you. That is why Archangel Michael has stepped in so strongly at this exact point. Because this is not a door you walk through casually. This is not something you try and see how it goes without consequence. This is a shift in direction that carries permanence in ways you may not fully realize yet. And here is where you must become very honest with yourself. Why are you drawn to this door? Is it because it truly aligns with where you are meant to go, or because it appears easier than what you are currently facing? Is it because it reflects your deeper truth, or because it offers a quick escape from something you are not ready to deal with? Because doors that appear at the height of pressure are not always opportunities. Sometimes they are distractions. They arrive at the exact moment you feel overwhelmed. They present themselves when you are tired of waiting, tired of questioning, tired of sitting in uncertainty. And because of that, they feel like relief. They feel like movement. They feel like the answer you've been looking for. But not every door is meant to be opened. Some are meant to be recognized and then left alone. This is where discernment becomes critical. Because once you step through a door, you step into everything connected to it. The environment, the energy, the consequences, the timeline. It all becomes part of your reality. And even if you decide later that it wasn't right, the experience itself cannot be undone. The time cannot be reclaimed. The path you left behind cannot simply be resumed as if nothing changed. That is why this moment is being slowed down, because you are being given the chance to see the door clearly before you walk through it, to understand not just what it promises but what it requires, to recognize not just what it offers but what it takes. You may feel like you are standing on the edge of something important, and you are. But importance does not always mean alignment. Significance does not always mean it is meant for you. Sometimes, the most powerful choice you can make is not stepping forward but stepping back. Not opening the door but waiting. Waiting until you are no longer influenced by pressure. Waiting until your clarity is stronger than your desire for resolution. Waiting until you can stand in front of that door without urgency, without emotional pull, without the need to convince yourself. Because when something is truly aligned, it does not require you to rush into it. It remains. It waits. It allows you to approach it with certainty, not hesitation. So right now, you are being asked to pause at the threshold, to look at this door again, to feel beyond the surface, to recognize what is truly pulling you toward it. Because once you step through, the direction of your path changes, and some doors once closed behind you do not open again. This is not meant to create fear. This is meant to bring awareness. Because awareness is what protects you from making irreversible choices without full clarity. And right now, clarity is what you need more than anything else. So do not rush this moment. Do not let pressure make the decision for you. Stand still. Look again. And choose with the understanding that this is not just a step, this is a turning point. Type "I choose" with full awareness in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7777 is now surrounding your path with protection and clarity. There is another layer to this decision that you cannot afford to overlook. It is not just about the action you take. It is not just about the direction you choose. It is about the people connected to the direction, the ones who will enter your life, the ones who will remain, and the ones who will quietly fall away as a result of what you decide next. Because every decision you make carries relational consequences. You may think you are choosing a path, but in reality, you are also choosing an environment. You are choosing who has access to you. You are choosing whose voices become louder in your life, whose influence grows stronger, and whose presence begins to shape your mindset, your energy, and even your identity over time. That is why this matters more than you think. Think about who is connected to this decision right now, who benefits from you moving forward, who is encouraging you to act quickly, who seems invested in the outcome you are leaning toward. And then ask yourself something deeper: are they aligned with your growth, or are they aligned with their own expectations? Because not everyone who supports your decision is supporting your alignment. Some people support what is convenient for them. Some people support what keeps you within a version of yourself they are comfortable with. And some people, whether consciously or not, influence your choices in ways that serve their needs more than your purpose. This is not always obvious. It does not always come with clear signs of manipulation or control. In fact, it often feels normal, familiar, even well-intentioned. But influence does not have to be negative to be misaligned. It simply has to pull you away from what is truly right for you. And right now, you must look at this clearly. Because if your decision is being shaped, even slightly, by the expectations, opinions, or pressure of others, then you are not choosing freely. You are choosing under influence. And influence, when left unchecked, can lead you into paths that feel right externally but leave you unsettled internally. You've felt this before, haven't you? Moments where you made a choice that others approved of, that seemed logical, that fit into what was expected, but something inside you never fully agreed with it. Something remained unsettled, even when everything around you said it was the right move. That feeling matters, because it reveals the difference between external alignment and internal truth. External alignment is when everything looks right on the outside. Internal truth is when everything feels right within you, and the two are not always the same. This is why Archangel Michael is bringing your attention to the people connected to this decision. Not to create doubt about others, but to bring clarity about yourself. To help you recognize whether your path is being guided by your own discernment or subtly shaped by the presence and influence of those around you. Because the truth is, once you step into a decision, you also step deeper into the environment that comes with it. And environments shape people. They influence how you think, how you respond, how you grow. If the environment is aligned, it supports your clarity. It strengthens your peace. It allows you to remain grounded in who you truly are. But if it is not aligned, it slowly begins to shift you. Not all at once. Not in ways that are immediately obvious, but gradually, until one day, you realize you are no longer as clear as you once were. You are no longer as grounded as you used to be. And by then, the path has already changed. That is why this moment is so critical. Because you are not just choosing an action. You are choosing the people, the energy, and the environment that will surround you after that action is taken. So take a step back. Look at who is connected to this. Look at how their presence makes you feel when you think about this decision. Look at whether their influence brings clarity or adds to the pressure. Because the right path will not require you to compromise your inner clarity to maintain external approval. It will not require you to ignore your own awareness just to keep things comfortable with others. It will not require you to silence your truth to fit into someone else's expectations. And if it does, then you already have your answer. This is not about questioning others. This is about honoring yourself. Because the moment you choose alignment, everything else begins to reorganize around it. The right people remain. The wrong influences lose their hold, and your path becomes clear, not more complicated. So do not overlook this part. Do not assume that your decision exists in isolation, because it doesn't. It is connected, and those connections matter. Choose not just based on the outcome you see, but based on the environment you are stepping into. Because who surrounds you after this decision will shape what comes next. Type "I choose what aligns with my truth" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8888 is now activated around your relationships and environment. As you begin to see how every connection shapes your path, understand this. When you give into this mission, you are helping redirect lives that are standing at their own crossroads right now. Scripture declares that those who water others will themselves be watered, and in this moment, your support becomes a stream flowing into hearts that are searching for truth. I feel led to speak this directly to you. Your action today is not small. It is prophetic. It is a seed planted into someone else's moment of decision. The PayPal link in the description and the QR code on your screen are not just options. They are invitations to participate in what God is doing through these messages. As you release your seed, heaven marks it, multiplies it, and sends it back into your life as favor and protection. Do not delay this prompting. Move now. and let your obedience become someone else's clarity. There is something you must face with complete honesty right now, something that most people avoid because it requires them to slow down when everything inside them wants to move forward. Acting too quickly does not just create temporary mistakes. It creates spiritual consequences that unfold over time, often in ways you do not immediately recognize. This is not about fear. This is about awareness. Because when you move before you are ready, before you are clear, before you are aligned, you are not just making a decision. You are stepping into a sequence of events that begins to shape your reality in ways you cannot fully control once it has started. That is why haste is so dangerous. It convinces you that speed equals progress. It makes you believe that acting now is better than waiting. It tells you that if you don't move quickly, you will miss something important. But what it does not show you is what you may walk into by moving too soon. You've experienced this before, whether you fully acknowledged it or not. A moment where you rushed a decision because it felt urgent, because you didn't want to lose the opportunity, because you didn't want to sit in uncertainty any longer. And at first, everything seemed fine. It felt like you had taken control. It felt like you had moved forward. But then, slowly, things began to reveal themselves. Details you didn't see before. Consequences you didn't expect. Feelings that told you something was not as aligned as you thought. And by the time you fully understood it, you were already in it. That is the nature of acting too quickly. It hides its consequences until after the choice is made. And this is exactly what Archangel Michael is warning you about right now. Because there is a difference between movement and alignment. Movement is easy. It requires no depth. It simply requires action. Alignment is different. It requires patience. It requires awareness. It requires you to sit with what you are feeling long enough to understand it fully before you respond. Right now, you are being pulled toward movement, but you are being called into alignment. And those two paths do not lead to the same outcome. When you act too quickly, you bypass your own awareness. You override the signals that were trying to guide you. You ignore the hesitation that was meant to protect you. And in doing so, you disconnect from the clarity that would have allowed you to choose differently. That is the real consequence. Not just what happens externally, but what happens internally. Because every time you override your own awareness, it becomes easier to do it again. Every time you silence that inner pause, it becomes quieter the next time it tries to speak. And over time, you begin to lose the connection to your own discernment. That is how people drift off their path. Not through one major mistake, but through a series of rushed decisions that slowly move them away from alignment. That is why this moment is so important. Because you are being given the chance to break that pattern. To choose differently. To not rush just because you feel pressure. To not act just because something appears urgent. To not finalize something that your spirit has not fully settled into. Because here's the truth you need to hold on to. What is truly meant for you will not require you to abandon your clarity to obtain it. It will not require you to ignore your awareness. It will not require you to move so quickly that you cannot fully see what you are stepping into. If something is aligned, it remains available long enough for you to approach it with understanding. But if something requires you to rush, to decide immediately, to act before you are ready, then you must question why. Because urgency is often used to bypass discernment. And once discernment is bypassed, the consequences begin. This is not about delaying forever. This is about choosing the right moment. The moment when your mind is clear. The moment when your spirit is settled. The moment when you no longer feel pulled by pressure, but guided by understanding. That is the moment when your decision becomes aligned. Right now, you are not there yet. And that is okay. Because recognizing that you are not ready is a sign of awareness, not weakness. It means you are paying attention. It means you are no longer willing to move blindly. It means you are stepping into a higher level of responsibility for your own path. And that is exactly what is being asked of you now. So do not let urgency make this decision for you. Do not let the discomfort of waiting push you into acting prematurely. Stay where you are for a moment longer. Allow the clarity to fully form. Because once you move, the consequences follow. And this time you have the awareness to choose differently. Type "I move with divine timing" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9999 is now activated around your timing and decisions. There comes a moment when the searching has to stop. A moment when you are no longer meant to look for more confirmation, more validation, more signs to help you feel certain about what you already sense deep within. And this right here is that moment for you. You have asked for a sign. Maybe not out loud. Maybe not in a formal prayer. But in your thoughts, in your uncertainty, in those quiet moments where you question what you should do next, you asked. You asked for clarity. You asked for direction. You asked for something to show you whether you were about to make the right choice. And now, you are here. Not by accident, not by coincidence, but because this is the answer you have been seeking. The problem is, signs do not always come in the way people expect. They don't always arrive as something obvious or undeniable. They don't always remove all doubt or make the path completely clear in a single moment. Instead, they come as awareness, as a shift in perspective, as a realization that changes the way you see what is already in front of you. That is what this is. This is not here to tell you what to choose. This is here to show you what you need to see before you choose. And if you are honest with yourself, something inside you has already shifted. You are not looking at this decision the same way you were before. You are not feeling the same level of urgency. You are not as certain about moving forward as you thought you were. That is the sign. It is not something external. It is something internal. Because the most powerful confirmations do not come from outside sources telling you what to do. They come from within you when something finally aligns, or when something finally feels off in a way you can no longer ignore. That feeling you have right now, that awareness, that pause, it is your answer. But here is where you must be careful. Because once a sign is given, the responsibility shifts to you. Before this moment, you could say you didn't know. You could say you weren't sure. You could say you were just trying to figure things out. But now you have been shown something. And once you are shown, you cannot go back to not knowing. You cannot ignore what has been brought into your awareness without consciously choosing to do so. That is the weight of a sign. It does not force your decision. It reveals it. And brings clarity to what was uncertain. It highlights what you may have been avoiding. And it places you in a position where your next move becomes intentional, not accidental. That is where you are now. You are no longer guessing. You are no longer blindly moving forward. You are standing in a moment where you have been given enough awareness to recognize what is aligned and what is not. And the question is, will you honor that? Will you trust what has been revealed to you, even if it requires you to slow down, to reconsider, or to walk away from something you were already leaning toward? Because this is where many people struggle. They ask for a sign, but when it comes, it challenges what they wanted to do. It disrupts their plans. It creates hesitation where they wanted certainty. And instead of honoring it, they try to override it. They convince themselves it's not real. They tell themselves they're overthinking. They push forward anyway and only later realize that the sign they ignored with the clarity they needed. You do not have to repeat that pattern. Not this time. Because this time, you are aware. This time, you are paying attention. This time, you have been given the opportunity to choose with full understanding of what you are feeling and why. And that is something not everyone receives before making a major decision. So do not minimize this moment. Do not dismiss what you are sensing right now. Do not look for another sign when this one has already reached you. Because clarity does not always come louder. Sometimes, it comes once clearly enough for you to recognize it, and then it waits for your response. This is that moment. This is your confirmation. This is the point where everything you needed to see hath been placed in front of you, not through external instruction, but through internal awareness. And now, the decision becomes yours. Not based on pressure, not based on urgency, but based on truth. So trust what you feel right now. Trust what has shifted. Trust what no longer feels the same. Because the sign you were waiting for has already arrived. And what you do next will show whether you truly received it. Type "I trust the sign" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now activated around your clarity and direction. Something is happening around you right now that you cannot fully see, but you can feel it if you slow down enough to notice. The atmosphere around this decision has changed. The pressure that once felt overwhelming is no longer as strong. The urgency that was pushing you forward has started to lose its grip. And in its place there is something else beginning to settle in. That is not coincidence. That is protection activating. Because when you reach a moment like this, when awareness has been given, when clarity has begun to rise, when you have paused instead of rushed, something shifts in your favor. Something begins to align around you, not by your effort, but by your willingness to listen before you act. Archangel Michael does not only warn, he protects. And protection does not always look like something being removed from your path. Sometimes, it looks like your path being slowed down. Sometimes, it looks like confusion lifting just enough for you to see clearly. Sometimes, it looks like a delay that prevents you from stepping into something prematurely. That is what is happening now. You are not being blocked. You are being guarded. Because there are moments where, if you had moved forward too quickly, you would have stepped into something that required recovery instead of growth. Something that would have demanded your time, your energy, your focus in ways that would have taken you further away from where you are meant to be. And instead of allowing that, protection stepped in. Quietly. Precisely. At the exact moment it was needed. You may not have recognized it at first. You may have even felt frustrated by it. You may have wondered why things weren't moving as smoothly as you expected. But now, as you look at this moment again, you can begin to see it differently. What felt like resistance was actually redirection. What felt like delay was actually alignment. What felt like uncertainty was actually protection holding you in place until you could see clearly. This is how guidance works when you are willing to receive it. It does not force outcomes. It creates space for better ones. And right now, that space is being created for you. Because once you choose with clarity, the path ahead changes. Not in a dramatic, immediate way that you can always see, but in a steady, unfolding way that begins to align circumstances, people, and opportunities differently than they would have if you had rushed. That is the power of protection. It does not just keep you from harm. It positions you for what is truly meant for you. But here is what you must understand. Protection works with your awareness, not against it. It does not override your choices. It supports the choices you make when you are aligned. That means this moment matters more than you realize. Because now that you are aware, now that you have paused, now that you have seen what you needed to see, your next decision determines how that protection continues to unfold. If you move forward with clarity, the path will open in ways that feel natural, not forced. If you honor what you have recognized, the right direction will strengthen itself without pressure. If you trust the pause instead of resisting it, you will begin to feel a different kind of momentum. One that does not rush you, but carries you forward steadily. That is alignment. And alignment is where protection becomes guidance. You are no longer trying to figure everything out on your own. You are moving with something that is already working in your favor. But if you ignore what has been shown to you, if you rush past this moment, if you act just to resolve the discomfort of waiting, then you step outside of that protection. Not because it disappears, but because you chose to move before it could fully guide you. That is why this moment is so important. Because you are not just being protected from something. You are being positioned for something better. Something that does not require confusion. Something that does not come with hesitation. Something that aligns with your clarity, not your pressure. And that only becomes visible when you allow this process to unfold without forcing it. So take a breath here. Recognize what has just happened. Recognize that you were not left alone in this decision. Recognize that something stepped in before you could move too quickly. And most importantly, recognize that you are now in a position where your next step can be made with awareness, not reaction. That is protection. Not something distant, not something abstract, but something present right here, right now, guiding you into a better outcome than the one you almost stepped into. And as long as you remain aware, it will continue to guide you forward. Type "I am protected and guided" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1111 is now activated around your path and decisions. This is it. This is the moment everything has been leading to. Not the decision itself, but the awareness before the decision. The clarity before the action. The stillness before the step. Because now, you can no longer say you don't know. You can no longer say you didn't feel it. You can no longer say there were no signs, no warnings, no pauses placed in your path. Everything you needed hath been shown. And now, the final call is being placed before you, not by force, not by fear, but by truth. Choose with clarity, not pressure, because pressure has been the loudest voice around you. It has been the force trying to rush you, trying to convince you that this must happen now, that this must be decided immediately, that there is no time to wait. But look at what happened the moment you paused. Look at how everything began to shift. Look at how your awareness expanded the second you stopped moving blindly. That is the difference. Better wishes. Clarity reveals. Better put is. Clarity grounds. Pressure creates urgency. Clarity creates understanding. And right now, you are standing between those two forces. You feel the pull of both. One is telling you to move, to act, to finalize, to just get it over with. The other is telling you to breathe, to pause, to see, to trust what has already been revealed to you. Only one of those leads to alignment. And deep down you already know which one it is. This is not about making a perfect decision. This is about making a conscious one. Because a conscious decision is not made in confusion. It is not made in haste. It is not made in a moment where you are trying to escape discomfort. It is made when you can stand still, look at everything clearly, and choose without needing to convince yourself. That is where you are being called to stand right now. And this is where Archangel Michael's presence becomes final. Not because he is leaving, but because he has already done what was needed. He has warned. He has revealed. He has slowed you down. He has brought clarity where there was confusion. Now the choice is yours. And this is where many people make their final mistake. They receive the clarity, but they still choose pressure. They feel the truth, but they still follow urgency. They recognize the misalignment, but they move forward anyway because it feels easier than stepping back. Do not do that this time. Because this time, you are aware. This time, you have seen what you could not see before. This time, you have felt the difference between what is pushing you and what is guiding you. So honor that. Honor the pause that was placed in your path. Honor the awareness that rose within you. Honor the clarity that shifted your perspective. Because those things were not given to you lightly. They were given to protect you from making a choice that could have taken you further away from where you are meant to be. And now, you have the power to choose differently. To choose not based on what feels urgent, but based on what feels true. To choose not based on what others expect, but based on what aligns within you. To choose not based on fear of missing out, but based on trust that what is meant for you will not require you to rush into it. This is your final moment of stillness before movement. Your final moment of awareness before action. Your final opportunity to step forward with clarity instead of pressure. So take one last breath here. Feel what has changed inside you. Recognize what no longer feels the same. And choose from that place. Because the moment you do, everything that follows will begin to align differently. Not because the world changes instantly, but because you do. And that is where true direction begins. Type "I choose clarity over pressure" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activated around your final decision. As you stand in this final moment of clarity, understand this truth. Every seed you release becomes a light for someone else standing in darkness, about to make the wrong choice. The Lord declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, and it will return to you." And right now your giving becomes a divine current carrying truth into hearts that are searching for direction. I speak this directly to you. When you act through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description and QR code on your screen, you are not supporting content. You are unlocking revelation for souls who are waiting for their moment of awakening. This is not a suggestion. It is a divine invitation to participate in what heaven is doing right now. As you release your seed, heaven marks it, multiplies it, and surrounds your life with favor, protection, and open doors. Do not hesitate in this moment. Step into it with faith, and let your obedience become someone else's answered prayer.